Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy this video, we invite those of you who haven't yet done so, to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the notification icon, to be notified when the next one is uploaded. We'd like to urge those of you who haven't yet done so, to sign our online petition for an inquiry into the BBC and Channel 4's coverage of Lewis Hamilton and Abu Dhabi. A link has been provided in the description. If you are on X, then please repost our tweet. Thank you. There is so much to be said about Lewis Hamilton's historic performance for Ferrari in the sprint qualifying and race at China, that we should just dive straight in. Starting with qualifying, his pole time of 1 minute 30.849 seconds was also a new lap record for the circuit, breaking the old one that coincidentally had been set by Sebastian Vettel for Ferrari back in 2018. At the same time, he became F1's oldest pole sitter, a record previously set by our one and only Nigel Mansell, back at the 1994 Australian GP. But beyond the stats, is the fact that in only his second race, he finished over 0.2 of a second ahead of his teammate and renowned qualifier. A feat that even one of his harshest critics and Red Bull special advisor Helmut Marko had to acknowledge, as he had to eat his words that Max in a mediocre Red Bull would beat Sir Lewis in a good Ferrari. Marko has had to revise his opinion to question whether the GOAT can keep it up all season. Many of his other critics, including Martin Brundle, Planet F1 and Bernie Ecclestone to name but a few, had also suggested that based on his poor qualifying results against his former teammate, in his final season at a Mercedes that were accused of sabotaging him, he would struggle to match Leclerc, who they rated as the best qualifier in F1, even ahead of Verstappen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, guess that's another LHDS confirmation bias that has been comprehensively debunked. We look forward to seeing what all these folks now have to say. Just for the record, we have nothing but love and respect for Leclerc, and we look forward to enjoying the battle between the two in the true spirit of the sport. Our joy is founded on the LHDS-afflicted critics having to eat their words, and one can only imagine that others will be following in Helmut's footsteps. Those who were projecting that he would struggle to settle in at Ferrari, because Charles was so fast, he was too old, the culture was different and the cost of eggs were too prohibitive, are now having to adjust to the reality that he set the pace in only his second outing. Other stunning conclusions include but are not limited to the fact that he topped SQ1 and 3, despite the F1 media crowing about the super-fast McLaren favourites, who had topped the only practice session by half a second. The simple fact is that despite topping the only practice session by half a second, and SQ2 by over 0.2 of a second, Lando ended up 6th on the grid after bottling SQ3. So, looks like he is set to prove once again that there's more to winning a title than having the fastest car. Who knows what losing records he will be setting or breaking this season, depending on your perspective. The Mercedes that he was wrong to leave could only manage 5th and 7th, with their best finishing over 0.3 of a second away. Okay, let us turn our attention to the even more historic sprint race performance, where Hamilton claimed his and Ferrari's first sprint race victory. What can you say about a dominant lights-to-flag victory in only your second race? I'll tell you what the heck you can say. I woke up feeling great today. The first race was difficult and I really do feel a lot of people underestimated the steep climb it is to get into a new team, with communication and understanding and a whole lot of things. The amount of people I heard yapping away maybe because they haven't done it and don't have the experience. I came here and the engineers and mechanics have done a great job to fine-tune the car and it felt great today. There is so much grip on this new tarmac, but I think everyone struggled. That's what you say. Who could he possibly have been talking about when he said people who've never done it before and don't have the experience yapping away? Let us think. At Layman 8914, do you think it could have been Martin B. Ramble? Or any of those bitter LHDS-afflicted scribes who are desperately trying to bring him down? In Italy, the performance was magical, and in the rest of the world it was dominant. Let us know what you make of that in the comments. We think one comes out of love and the other out of fear, despair, or resentment, but maybe not. Do let us know. Why else would Sky write that Piastri had taken too much out of his tyres to chase down Hamilton, who won by almost 7 seconds? Instead of giving the credit to Sir Lewis for managing his tyres better, they lamented over Oscar's inability to chase him down. It was especially heartwarming to hear his engineer praising him on the slowing down lap for putting on a masterclass in tyre management in a race where all the other drivers struggled to make their rubber last. A race where all the anybody but Lewis Hamilton runaway favourites fell by the roadside. For the record, we have nothing but love for Oscar, who we recall paid his tribute to the GOAT, and declined the McLaren-induced disrespect that Lando oozes. We have also stated that we believe he will finish ahead of Norris this season. After failing to put his all-conquering McLaren on the front row, Lando, who was expected to blast his way to the front, instead did what he set the record for last season, the record that we have been shouting from the rooftops while F1 media have been gaslighting it. Yes, people, Norris fell back at the start like he usually does when the heat is on, as he dropped from 6th to 9th, in his all-conquering McLaren. You definitely can't blame that one on the car, but we are yet to see any of those people who conjure up unhinged notions to criticize Hamilton, saying anything about Norris' appalling start record. Instead of blasting his way to the front as his enablers were hoping, he moaned throughout the race as his younger teammate was making headway at the head of the race. But those people who are desperate to knock down the genuine article because he is black, and equally desperate to prop up any other white person they can find, said nothing. We can't talk about propped-up chumps without talking about Max. Helmut, who had been forced to reassess his confirmation bias after qualifying, would have sunk into further despair as Max, who was unable to make any headway against a dominant or magical Sir Lewis, fell back into the clutches of a young Oscar. Whatever happens going forward, they know that Sir Lewis is now a title contender. Forza Ferrari.